Sparking Change with Gigi, a show that aims to make the world a better place by bringing together authentic minds. This show encourages each of us to be the change we wish to see in the world. Get ready to be inspired and join us on this journey to create a brighter future for all.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sparking Change with Gigi. I'm your host, Giovanna Tartarone, and today we're going to be talking about the power of music and healing. And I have a special guest who's a songwriter, Russell Noma. Welcome.
Hi, thank you.
And
Appreciate
thank
being
you
here.
for being on the show. I love to, I met Russell, and he shares so much of his passion with music and writing music and putting it out there. He mentioned how it helps him to heal from many different things. And I love your story, Russell. So please share with us how you got into it. What do you do? And how does it help you?
Sure, Gigi. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. And hello, everybody who's watching. My journey in music, actually began years back in high school. And I'm in my 50s now, just to put things in perspective. But the high school I had a radio station, and
Okay.
I spent my formative years there, working in high school radio. And then, as a result of that experience, one of my first jobs was actually working for a professional DJ who was doing different types of parties. And that parlayed into my studying radio, television, and film. When I went off to college to George Washington University initially, and while I was there, I worked at the college radio station and began working in nightclubs where I was doing some DJing type of work there as well. So music was part of my formative years coming up through the ranks.
Yeah.
And one of my first jobs out of college was also with Z100 Radio, but my expertise was also a passion for technology all throughout that. I had some really near and dear friends who were very well vested in technology, and were kind enough to share their knowledge with me, to the point that I was able to leverage it to make a living for myself over the years. And,
Beautiful.
In doing that, I quickly saw the value of helping others and paying things forward, just through the fact that that's what people did with me, coming up through the ranks as well. So it instilled in me the desire, and drive to help others, and I saw many different ways of going about and doing that. I mean, my grandfather also was a heavy influence on me with that. He was part of a philanthropic organization known as the Knights of Pythias, which I'm also a member of, as well. And
Beautiful.
The entire goal behind that organization, is to really help others. That's
So, and I sense that, when we met, you spoke a little bit about what you're doing and the music, using it as part of, the healing process, right? To
absolutely
turn inward. And that's what I got from you, is that you really use music to speak your truth, meaning how you feel. And then when you're speaking your truth through singing and hearing those words, that becomes the healing process for you. So,
absolutely. But just to clarify, I don't sing. I write.
yes,
so I write and compose the lyrics, and I leverage technology to help me, particularly through the capabilities that are now out there with AI. And
and you do a fantastic job. I love to you wrote several songs, but pick one and tell us, like, why did you pick it? Why did you write that? And what was coming to mind, and what did it do for you?
Oh my
Because
goodness.
before we that's like a 5-part story, right? We as a coach, I also tell my clients that to journal, right? Journal what you're feeling. And so you're using a different method. You're using songwriting to speak how you feel, right?
Absolutely, and I'm writing, songs pretty much every day. I mean, I really began a lot of the songwriting itself, although I've
Hmm.
written lyrics before, but actually producing them and bringing them out, to the market really started in mid-August. And
Yeah.
I'm not going to talk about the motivations there, but I will speak to, one of my earlier songs, which is a song
Hmm.
called Angel,
Yes.
which is actually one of the songs that's doing very well. It's been trending both nationally and internationally. And
Yes.
it's heartwarming to see as a writer and creator when something that you bring into the world is resonating
Hmm.
with others, and you're seeing the warm loving responses from others who are out there.
It's touching.
Yeah, it's touching, and it just validates everything, because candidly, there's not a lot of money in songwriting, and I'm not doing this for those purposes at all. It's really about sharing what I'm feeling, and taking those feelings and just getting them out into the world, and that can be feelings that are good, feelings that are bad, or even just advice or counsel, about what's going on. So
And yeah.
I,
And
I have
I go ahead, I'm
over
sorry.
I have like over 200 songs, right? So for me to pick a particular one, um, I'm trying to think of which one would be ideal for um, for us to really hone in on, and I think I had
But
probably
the
six.
general message is, I mean, you said it how you're speaking about how you're feeling, whether it's good or bad. And here's what I've learned is that whatever you're feeling, there's probably somebody out there who's feeling the same way, right? That you're
Absolutely.
not alone. So when you put this music out there to the world, it's more of letting people know that they're not alone,
Very true.
right? And this is how we are all interconnected in a sense, because somebody's feeling what you're feeling for sure in this big universe of 8 billion people across the world.
No,
Um,
no doubt.
you know,
One of the songs that I think resonates with a lot of people, is one that's called "Rise Up, Find Your Voice,"
I
and
love that.
right, and it's really about breaking through the chains that many of us have within our own mind and mindset that holds us back.
Tell me some of the lyrics from that song, or can you read the lyrics for that song?
I believe I can. Let me. It'd be great if there was a way to play it. Um, Let me see what I can find here quickly.
If you could just read the lyrics, because that is exactly what many people are trying to do, is find their voice so they
Absolutely.
can be heard, right?
Let me find the lyrics to that real quickly here.
And I
Apologize.
probably encourage everyone to, look it up. I'm sure you're on YouTube.
I
You
am
have a
on
YouTube channel?
YouTube. I'm on Spotify. I'm on Apple Music. Basically, all of
Okay,
the streams, Amazon Music. So if you just search for artist Russell Nomer, you'll find a lot of my work out there.
okay.
Um, let's see, Rise Up, Find Your Voice. Here we go.
I have a dear friend who runs a community called Voice of a Million.
So,
Like she's,
so the
it's
lyrics
all. Hmm.
for this. I wrote this back in September, in the beginning of September. And the first verse is, "In the shadows where doubts reside, a whisper tells you to run and hide. But deep inside, there's a fire bright, a spark of strength ready to ignite. Who's going to save you from the chains of your mind? You hold the key, leave the darkness behind. Rise up, find your voice, let the echoes ring. You're the hero of your story. It's time to take wing." Those voices, they twist and they turn, but wisdom waits for you to learn. Is it really you that's holding the reins? Break the silence, dance through the pain. Who's going to save you from the chains of your mind? You hold the key, leave the darkness behind. Rise up, find your voice, let the echoes ring. You're the hero of your story, it's time to take wing. Don't let the shadows live in your head. Challenge the whispers, let courage spread. With every heartbeat, you're stronger than before. Step into the light, open every door. Who's going to save you from the chains of your mind? You hold the key, leave the darkness behind. Rise up, find your voice, let the echoes ring. You're the hero of your story, it's time to take wing. So stand tall, let the world hear your song. In the journey of life, you truly belong. With each step forward, you're breaking the spell. You're the one who will save you. Just listen and tell.
So beautiful.
Thank you.
So beautiful. And, you know, so authentic, so real, from the heart, and so true, because we are the ones that hold ourselves back. Like you really told a story there that a lot of people feel the same way. What made you write that?
Just, knowing how so many people deal with that, negative inner self-talk. And
Hmm.
if we don't, take massive action ourselves, to offset, that type of programming and change the programming, right, then we're doing ourselves a disservice because we're not taking the action necessary to heal ourselves from within.
You know, absolutely. You're so right. We have to take more action. If we want to see change, the change starts with us. That's essentially what you're saying there. And
Absolutely.
I couldn't agree with you more. You shared a story with me, and I'd love for you to share with my audience. You had a major, major car crash.
I did. I actually had two accidents. Prior to the car crash, I had a slip and fall on a wet marble floor that damaged my neck. And it did, enough damage that I needed to go in for a, spinal fusion, on my neck. So I actually have a titanium plate and titanium screws, in my neck.
Okay.
Um, after that accident, I began having very bad headaches, pain down the left side of my shoulder, down my arm, tingling fingers, and it made it very difficult to concentrate and focus because of
Hmm.
the pain. And I was put on all kinds of pain medications that would make me sleepy and groggy and not able to focus or function. And that had an impact on my working full time. So,
Hmm.
I left, a very, lucrative role, to focus on my healing journey and
Hmm.
engaged in physical therapy, was making decent progress. And then to your point, there was a subsequent car accident that was unexpected. I was, driving and a woman, ran a red light, on 110 out here in Melville, Long Island, and demolished my Pathfinder. Um, did a number on my back that set me back in the progress that I'd made in physical therapy and injured other areas of my lower back as well. Um,
Hmm.
and as a result of that, it was a eye-opening epiphany for me as to how we take things for granted. You know, every moment that we have, for our human experience here on Earth,
Hmm.
right, is a gift, right? That's why a
Absolutely.
recent song I wrote is called "The Present." That speaks to that, as well. And I think back, to my childhood and to the number of childhood friends who I've lost through various types of tragedies, whether it was from 9/11, where my
Hmm.
friend Dana was a firefighter who was one of the responders who was killed, in the Trade Center, or my friend Michael, who was an EMT who was doing a swift water rescue and lost his footing and fell and drowned and had a heart attack and, passed. And he and I actually had the same birthday, as well,
Hmm.
right? So, that was, quite a blow. Um, And he was the one who actually, mentored me over the years in computers. Him, and then my other friend Bjorn, right, who had also passed. He had decided to try to get back into shape, and unfortunately, had a massive heart attack. So as you see these kinds of things on your journey, they're reminders, to really be grateful for every moment that we get, because there are no guarantees. And when I looked at the damage on the car, it dawned on me that, if I was just, like a foot further in, right, the impact would have been directly on the driver's door, and I probably wouldn't be here to tell the story.
Right. So now, and I share with you my story of my journey, my cancer journey, and we look at life so differently now. We
Absolutely.
look at life so precious. And no matter what's going on, we are so appreciative, even of the bad things that happen, because now we see those bad things as like, it's still a gift. I'm still here to see the bad things, and I can actually handle them with a response instead of a reaction, right? Because when we
Absolutely.
react to something, we are not appreciative. We don't even think about being appreciative because we're so angry of the situation. But getting to a point where, you are almost at the end of your life, or you're losing your life, or you go into a situation like that, life becomes the most precious thing that we can have.
Absolutely.
And right. And so I
Um,
connected with you so well because of your story, because I've been there, and I know exactly how you feel. And there's many people probably feeling that way who also have had the same experience. But then those who did not have that experience and see that, life is not that great, and life, sucks, and life is giving us all these curveballs. But if we only change the way we view life, those curveballs will change.
Absolutely. I mean, I know from us talking that we both believe in manifesting and the law of attraction, and how thoughts become things. And, you know, we create those, frequencies of what's actually drawn to us. And it's amazing to me how many people that refuse to take the time to really look into these kinds of things and understand them. Because, when they do, right, they can often find that it's absolutely life changing. And,
Right.
it's not some kind of, magical hocus pocus. It actually does make a difference in mindset. And I'm reminded when I read the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by, the late Stephen Covey, right?
Hmm.
There was there was, a sentence that he wrote that always resonated with me, and that's: between stimulus and response, there's a space where we stop and make
Hmm.
a choice, right? And
Yeah.
within that space is where I believe we're supposed to ask ourselves empowering questions like, so what, and so what now?
Before we react. Correct.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's so beautiful. And so that is in alignment with really per- personal growth, right? Like, you want to know more, you want to change, you're making a commitment to be a better version of yourself. And now you start to see all these things that you were never taught, right? You did a lot of schooling in your years. I did a lot of schooling in my years. They never talked about, the universe and law of attraction and your thoughts are powerful. I mean, I studied Napoleon Hill
Right.
work. It's amazing. Bob Proctor's work. It's amazing. Like, I was just so taken back to everything that I was learning. Given that I have 2 masters, so I've been in school for a very long time, and I never came across this information until I got into personal development,
Yeah.
because I started asking the questions why. Like, what am I here for? Am I here just to work and suffer and not have a good time and sacrifice for the whole time I'm, for 80 years, 90 years, as long as God gives me? Like, there's got to be more than this. Like, a lot of people are asking those questions today,
I
right?
know.
And
And they're
and
important
this
questions because the world needs a lot of healing.
They do. It does. It absolutely does. But it starts with us. We can't
Absolutely.
say, "Oh, we're gonna, new president's coming on board. We're gonna make him heal the world." No, it's we have to be the change that we want to see first, and then we see the world changing, right? One at a time. We'll take
Exactly.
responsibility.
We have to put our own oxygen masks on first, right? And you can't save the world if you can't pay the rent, right? But that said, right, when you get yourself into a position where you're stable enough to offer your help to others, by all means do that. Even if that's something as simple as having an idea and sending it to the new president, right? You never know what's going to resonate, unless you take the time to share your feelings and your thoughts with others, because that's how we all grow, through having those types of conversations. And I know that there's some out there in the world who are like, it's, like, throwing, good intentions out there, and some folks will think, automatically, reverting to the negative, that, nothing will come of such an action. But what if it does, right? And
Right?
how would you know, right?
Mhm.
Whether or not you could get that outcome without at least trying. There's
Right.
that old saying about, it's an old joke where, a poor person's constantly praying to God saying, please let me hit the lottery, right? And day after day, he's praying and praying and praying, right? And finally he hears this booming thunderous voice that says, dude, buy a ticket.
Yeah, absolutely. Take action, right? Take
Yeah,
action because it
absolutely.
really begins with us. And um, we have to stop pointing the finger, right? And stop pointing the finger this way and saying,
Yeah.
what is it that I want? What is it that I want for me? What can I do for me? Because then you can be of service to others. I mean, I know your life changed and your perspective on life changed after those accidents you had,
After
right? I
those
mean,
accidents, I mean, I've had my share, of trauma and setbacks, but then I've also, been able to apply, setting intentions and the law of attraction, to, heal, and manifest things that, others would, look at and say, is this guy some kind of a wizard, or the luckiest guy, walking the planet? And it's funny because in addition to the music, I've also written many books spanning multiple topics, from technology to, overcoming eating addictions to finding winning slot machines. So, and I
I
mean,
got that book.
it's a funny topic, and I mean, and in the book itself, I say that, I offer the insight that there's really no such thing as finding the winning slot machines, because it really comes down to mindset. And in my own experience, and this is actually a funny story. I was going through my divorce, and was stressing over how I was going to pay the lawyer. Right. And it's Valentine's Day. And, I'm with my current, significant other, who I'm now with for, 16 years. And, she and I have been, very blessed, and I'm grateful for that. But at this particular time, I sat down in front of a progressive, and I had the mindset, not that I just wanted to help myself, but that I wanted to help her. Right. And lo and behold, right, I hit a progressive, jackpot, and it paid for the divorce and allowed me to also, help her out with some things as
So
well. And
did
it
you
was all,
manifest that?
yeah, it was total mindset. It was just
Yeah.
complete
Yeah.
mindset, and that's happened to me a few times. And if folks
Mhm.
look at the book, right, there's pictures in there of, the different times that I've won. And it's funny because when I go with family or friends, right, they're all like, you're the luckiest guy we know, right, because you're winning. And it's like it's not really luck. It's, it's mindset,
Um,
and, how you just, manifest, certain types of outcomes. Now, does that mean I'm always going to win? No, it doesn't mean that. It just means that, if I'm resonating the right energy at the right time and place, then there's a higher likelihood that I'm going to achieve that outcome.
Absolutely.
And to date, the proof is in all of the photos of the various jackpots and handpiece that I've managed to hit.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, let's talk about mindset, because I know you and I both had to do a major shift in how we were thinking in order to be right here where we are today. So we'll be right back, everyone.
Sure.
Now, the vast majority, approximately 95% of the people of all countries, go around and around without aim or purpose. They drift with the circumstances of life, good or bad.
A drifter is one who permits himself to be influenced and controlled by circumstances outside of his own mind.
Whereas the successful individuals create their own circumstances and ride them to victory.
When you're on purpose, you're living on purpose. You will never quit if you have a real purpose.
A burning desire to be and to do is the starting point from which the dreamer must take off. But what I have done has been recorded, it's been tested, it's being taken to a free world, and it's going to benefit millions of people who are not yet born.
And it's going to benefit millions of people who are not yet born. We're some of those people that we're spreading this to the world. As your awareness grows, the doubt is gone, so that you can manifest whatever it is your heart desires. Isn't that beautiful?
Welcome back, everyone. Okay, so we left off with talking about mindset, and we just watched this commercial, right, about finding our purpose.
Yeah.
And when we do find our purpose, there's that alignment that we must now honor. And this is where the mindset begins to change, right? Because what we were doing before, we now see how we can do it better, or we can be more open and flexible, right? Instead of going based on our conditioning, because our mindset is based on conditioning. I don't know if you ever studied Dr. Bruce Lipton. I mention him all the time. He's an epigenetic doctor who, it's all over the place that we function more than 90% of our day. We make decisions based upon our subconscious beliefs, right? So our mindset is based on those beliefs.
Absolutely.
So we must do a lot of work to shift the mindset. And that's, we do it through studying, through reading, through, watching, being on the side of what we want, persisting on what we want, having that purpose. Like when I met you, I just felt that passion in music, coming from your heart and why you're doing it and how it makes you feel. And the energy was just synergy. We were just in alignment to share, I would say, the love out to the world through your music, through my show. So tell me about how you truly had to start shifting your mindset to understanding there's so much more to life than what we originally think there is, or
Absolutely.
conditioned to believe.
So a lot of that started for me during the pandemic, when we were all really forced to slow down. And that's when I began focusing more on my creative side as well, through writing, painting, through gardening, through doing the types of things that were considered to be, more simple and wholesome, right?
Yes.
The types of things that, often were considered to be, diversions that,
we didn't have time for, right?
Exactly. We didn't have time for it. We couldn't really take the time to focus. And one thing that was life-changing for me, during the pandemic, and this was a true blessing, there was a hurricane that came through, and it set the power lines in our front yard on fire, which then in turn set the Siberian elm tree in our front yard that had a squirrel's nest in it on fire.
Oh
And
no.
yeah, I was out in the front yard, and I hear, these strange sounds, and then I wound up finding a baby, newborn blind squirrel. Right, they were born blind. Right,
Oh wow.
right.
Yeah.
And when I found her, I didn't know it was a her at first. I thought it was a him. Right, when they're very young, it's hard to really tell their gender. But I named the squirrel Sparky because of the sparks from the power line. Right, it seemed like an apropos name. And although in New York it's not considered legal, right, to rescue a squirrel and raise it unless you're a licensed animal rehabber. We're in the height of the pandemic, and I wasn't going to allow one of God's creatures to just die. That was newborn and innocent. So I did the research and ordered the formula that I needed from Amazon, and started bottle feeding this little baby squirrel from a syringe with this formula mix.
Okay.
And in the past, I had owned a sugar glider, which I figured was similar. So I had a bonding pouch that I would put Sparky in, and I would hold Sparky close to my chest in the bonding pouch, so that Sparky could feel my heartbeat and the warmth of my body and feel comforted, and know that Sparky was safe and loved. And Sparky grew and thrived, and got to the point where she opened her eyes and would gravitate towards healthier foods, and her favorite food happened to have been almonds. And she would come to me on command and take almonds from me. And we had bought an enclosure for in the house and outside of the house for her, and gradually got her acclimated to being outdoors and learning the ways of other squirrels. And we got her to the point where we were able to release her. And we released her, and she actually came back, pregnant with babies of her own. And she was kind to share them with us. And I actually took pictures of me with all of these baby squirrels, on me, and Sparky.
Oh my goodness.
And when you look at just the social dynamics of squirrels and how they behave, right? They have a language that they communicate with each other, both through how they chatter, as well as how they work their tails. And what was endearing to me is, if Sparky was out in the treetops and she heard one of the babies cry, she would come running back to check on that squirrel, which is a parent's love for their children. It's just ingrained and innate. And when you see that, and you see how that type of love, right, is not just something that we see within humans, but something that's understood across all species. And I've seen that with rescue dogs and horses and other animals that are out there as well. And it's a universal language.
And how does that make you feel, right? Think about that. Just even having them on your chest. Yes, they're animals, but their energy, their love energy, whatever you want to call it, just resonated with you, I'm sure.
Absolutely. It's that healing from within that we've been talking about. I mean, there's a reason that we see all of these different types of emotional support animals out there, whether it's a dog.
Yes.
And I mean, I've read about one guy who had an emotional support alligator. And,
Oh my God. I don't think I'll go that deep. I have a little kitten, a regular cat, but
Gigi, we've talked about different frequencies resonate differently with different people. So it's funny, like my music, I tend to really enjoy blues and alternative and folk. Those are really my go-to types of genres, that resonate best with me. But if I have the lyrics that I want to share with the rest of the world, I know that if I produce them in other genres, that it's going to resonate with them. For example, with my own brother Adam, right? If I try to get him to listen to alternative or folk, he's going to tune out. But if I make it in some type of thrash metal, right, he's going to lock into that and listen and give me feedback, right?
Absolutely.
So
No, yeah. I was gonna say no different when I was teaching. If I presented something that resonated with the kids, they loved it. They were all in tuned and focused. If I gave them something that they had no interest in, I mean, I was struggling teaching a lesson because it's like, okay, there's no connection, right?
right.
So there
And,
has to be a connection.
and that's where it really comes down to teachers taking the time to understand the learning styles of their different students and what resonates with them and how they may need to
Hmm.
slightly alter and change the packaging of the messaging. And not all
Absolutely.
teachers are going to take the time to do that, but there are some out there, right, who really value that sense of accomplishment and nurturing when they can see that by sharing that type of love of learning and helping somebody really get that concept, all the difference in the world it can make for a person. And I mean,
Where
on
there's a
my
will.
absolutely. On my own journey, when I was in high school, right, I had a teacher, who taught, communications, and I was very shy, and reserved, and had probably some social anxiety as well from moving around and just being the new kid who would get picked on from time to time. So, this particular teacher managed to get me out of my shell. And, I remember it was sophomore year, and I wrote a speech to run for class president. And in her particular class, it was actually meant for upperclassmen, but I was able to get permission to take it anyway. And when I wrote the speech, it gave everybody chills when I delivered it in the classroom, and they said, "You're ready to actually give this speech, and run for office." And they came down. All of the upperclassmen, it was like my entourage walking me into the auditorium to give this speech, and it was set to the Top Gun anthem. This is when Top Gun was a really big deal for
Famous
all of
movie.
us at the time. And I gave the speech, and my opponent was a very popular athlete in the school, and candidly I didn't think I had a snowball's chance in hell of winning at the time. But I found out later that I won by a landslide because the messages that I sent that came from the heart resonated with everybody. And when somebody is speaking from their heart and delivering those types of messages that are rooted in love and making things better, um, that often is what makes the difference. And I try to put that into my music and into my books, and whatever I bring out into the world, it comes with that type of inner drive and passion behind it. Um, you know,
It's definitely evident. So I truly appreciate the work that you do.
thank you.
Um, and there's no question in my mind that it's helping to heal the world, right?
Thank you.
Because whatever words we speak out there, it's not just meant for us. I always say, watch what your words and what you're saying, whether you're singing or because you're affecting the collective, all of us.
Absolutely.
The sounds and the vibration and the frequency we're putting out in the world comes from words that we speak,
Yeah.
feelings that we feel. And I love the way, the connection is made through the work that you're doing
Thank
for
you. One of
improving the
my
world that we
songs
live in.
that there's a few songs that I'm really proud of, and one is called "In the Whisper of the Stars," and the what really motivated me to write that song. I have a near and dear friend who sadly was expecting a granddaughter.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, she was stillborn, and he was devastated by
Yes.
what had happened, as was his family. And, talking, and I was doing what I could to console her. my friend. And then I know that my friend is very much into music, as well, and appreciates the healing power of music. So I wrote, the lyrics to "In the Whispers of the Stars," and then spent the time going through composing it, with the various tools that I have. And when it was done, I sent it to him, and he called me and was just so grateful, and told me how his family was so grateful, and how they were playing it at the memorial service, and how it really made a difference for them. And
Beautiful.
when you hear that, it's just heartwarming to know that something that taking the time to write and bring something like that out into the world can help to cope with that type of pain. And
Of
it's
course.
it's just important to do what we can as humans, to help others who are here on this journey with us, because I do believe we all cross paths for a reason.
And we'll all see each other on the other side, right?
Yeah.
So here's what I noticed about you, that I'd like to share with the audience is that through our conversation and also through demonstration, you take initiative. You take your own initiative to find a way to help people. It was, like again, evident in my conversation with you and when we met at the networking place last week.
Yes.
You shared a story about you wrote a song. I think you were at a restaurant and you wrote a song to this man who then he emailed you. Can you share that story? Because that's a
Yes,
beautiful story.
yes. It's not a
You know
restaurant.
what I'm
It's
talking about, right?
actually it's actually a place out east on Long Island, and
Go ahead, share, yeah, something like that. But I remember it was a great story. Share
yeah,
us.
they're known for making moonshine, different flavors of moonshine. And
Okay.
I read their story and was moved by the history. So I wrote a song and put it together and included the sheet music for it with the lyrics and the actual song itself, and sent it to the business contact, and his name's Joe. And the very next day I got a reply back, telling me that the song gave him chills, and that he's often the one that's doing nice things for others, and having this come out of left field and manifest, and really touched him, and just invited me to come out there and see the place, and and I'm looking forward to doing that.
So yeah, and
But
I wanted you to say this story because that's what your music does. It goes right to the heart. And I want people to know that if they want to share their story, they can do it through music,
absolutely.
right? Because a lot of us are sharing our story, and in order to heal, we need to become vulnerable. And
Yeah.
how can we become vulnerable and still feel good about it? And
And also, how do we get programmed as human beings, as well, when we think about media and the various types of sound bites that are out there. And I remember this from my early days at GW, and I'm not going to get political, but I did study political communications, radio, television, and film. And I remember in those classes talking about manipulation and influence and spin doctoring, and how people can get programmed, based on what they're being exposed to. And it's something that the military uses, is psychological operations. They call it psyops. And it right. So you can take content and either use it for good purposes, or self-serving nefarious purposes. And know, my preference is to try to use it for healing and to promote good purposes. And if only everybody else in our world operated with that same sense of integrity and mindset,
right,
it would be a much better place. We wouldn't be seeing the kinds of conflicts and things that we're seeing throughout the world.
that's right. And it's instead of, again, we go from instead of competing, essentially is what you're saying, we go into cooperation.
Right.
You know, we go into being compassionate with each other,
You,
and
you
know
know,
that, you know,
we can still compete with compassion, right?
of
I mean,
course,
there's
of course. But we're
there's
not taught that, right? We're not
right,
taught that. We're taught the ego gets in the way, because the
exactly.
ego is just about, I'm going to win because that makes me powerful. And you're thinking about just yourself and makes me. And to
Some,
realize that it's
you know,
not just me in
some,
this world.
but then there's stories about, those athletes who see somebody that they're competing with who falls, right, and injures themselves, and instead of crossing the finish line, right, they stop to help that person where they
Oh,
would have won, right, but don't end up winning because they're more concerned about the welfare, of another human being. And
and they get the trophy anyway. Think about that. And they
yeah,
get the trophy
exactly.
anyway,
They
right?
get the trophy anyway, or in some of those
Mm,
stories, they get recognized or get the opportunity because if only the world actually consistently worked that way, you know.
you wouldn't
But
be in so much
if
trouble.
they don't get the trophy in this life, I believe that they certainly get it in the next one.
Well, they'll get it in a different way, right? But
Exactly.
we definitely get rewarded. It goes both ways, obviously. We get rewarded for the good that we put out. And
Right.
it's through giving that we receive. And I truly
Absolutely.
believe in that.
It,
Um,
it's so important, and you know professionally, I've worked in cybersecurity management consulting in the past. And when you work in that field, right,
mhm,
you see, unfortunately, a lot of the ugliness that's out there in the world, whether it's people who are trying to scam, others, out of, their, hard work, right? Or, alternatively, even within organizations themselves, where they'll take shortcuts and not do the right thing, to safeguard their businesses, their employees, or their customers, or sweep things under the rug instead of taking accountability and ownership. And
I
those are,
believe in karma.
yeah, so do I. And I mean, I've got stories about some of the different places that if people knew some of the things that actually go on, they would think twice about using some of the services and things that are out there.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, we only we see with our eyes, and we don't use the heart,
Right.
right? And so there's that disconnect sometimes, and I feel that that becomes a disadvantage to us,
Absolutely.
because if somebody's going out there, I mean, let's I mean, very simple analogy, not an analogy, but if someone's going out there trying to screw the insurance companies, lying or whatever, and it costs them so much money, they're only going to turn that cost over to us
Yeah,
individually.
they
So if
are.
you think you're gaining here, everybody else is losing on this end. Like,
Absolutely. Or even with some of the insurance companies, internally they may have, leadership or lawyers that, don't really understand the meaning of integrity, and doing the right thing
was
consistently. Right. And unfortunately, I've seen that side of things, as well. And
absolutely. So let's talk about if someone wanted to decide to write a song. What's the process that you would take them through to
well,
actually make that song go out into the world?
well, what I would start with, what's the message that you want to send out into the world and why?
Hmm.
Right? Let's get to the heart of the matter and really understand, what it
Yes.
is that's that you're trying to get out there, and the audience that you're looking to reach. And
Hmm.
we were fortunate enough to have a conversation last night, with someone who has a song, right,
Yeah.
as well. And often people will creatively decide that they want to lock into a message just in one particular way or one particular package. And
Yes.
when I heard that, I asked the empowering question as to whether or not that person wanted to really limit their audience, to just those individuals that will only hear that particular format, or if the message within the lyrics were important enough, right, to include others that would need to hear the message, in a slightly different package, so that they can receive the message.
Mhm.
And, it was like watching, the body language and reaction, right?
Right.
It was fascinating to me to watch, the body language and reaction, because it was like, a door had suddenly opened that hadn't been considered before, and it was like a whole new world of possibility.
Right. And I know you said you specialize, the use of AI and how to bring that, you know, to enhance the music, and you do all that with just anybody giving you lyrics
Yeah,
of their story. You
it
can really turn that into something that
can.
can
Yeah, we
finish.
can turn it
Yeah.
to something that can enhance it. And I mean, even
Yeah.
for healing purposes, I did
Mhm.
one piece, that's just instrumental, and it's meant to lower blood sugar. And that's just based on some of the healing frequencies, that I specified, to use within the composition, itself. And, there are some known different types of healing frequencies, that are out there.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it makes a difference. We've there's been quite a bit of studies on how different frequencies can impact people, and it helps with things like relaxation or sleep or focus.
I think
And
people are aware that it's out there, but don't necessarily believe it can help.
right,
And, this is where the mind shift, right?
yeah,
Shifting, your beliefs about what you have learned, and being open to accepting other ways um, for healing. And again, I love, what just came to mind as you were speaking about creating music with affirmations. A lot of people use affirmations to help them reprogram their mind.
absolutely.
And here you can do the same thing by putting those affirmations into a song. How beautiful is that? That's a very creative idea I just came up with.
Yeah, it's a
Right?
wonderful way to go about
Mm,
helping others to heal. And when you think about the commercial enterprises that are out there, and how they've used subliminal advertising over the years to program the subconscious, to go buy a soft drink or to eat more candy,
right, right,
right?
right. Yeah,
You can take that same process and use it for good to program the subconscious mind as well, right? Because if you think of the brain as a computer, right, in technology, there's the saying gigo, right? Garbage in, garbage out, right? So if you write bad code, you're going to get a bad output.
of
If
course.
the human brain is the most advanced supercomputer ever, right? And one
Yeah,
that we still don't understand or use to its full capacity, then who is anybody, to poo-poo the ideas of, what we program it with, to see whether or not we can manifest the types of outcomes that, make us, better versions of ourselves.
absolutely. Absolutely. So for those who are ready for change, definitely know that you have the capability of reprogramming your subconscious mind for sure. Absolutely. Do you want it? How bad do you want it? Is there a burning desire to do it so that you can change your life? It's a decision that is individually done,
Absolutely.
right?
Gigi,
So,
everybody has dreams, right?
of
And
course.
I remember, seeing a motivational piece once, where, a famous actor had said, you know, dreams without action is just fuel for disappointment,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
So taking that massive action consistently and not being afraid to fail, right? But recognizing that failure is just a pit stop on the road to success.
It's just something that's telling you, you're on the wrong path. Just shift and do a change, make a change, right?
Absolutely.
And there's no such thing as failure in my book. There's
Right.
no such
It's
thing.
just
This
a
is just
learning experience.
it's a
It's just a
learning
learning
experience like
experience,
everything else.
right?
I love it.
You know,
So we're going to take this to a landing. How people can get in touch with you, Russell, on your website?
Yes,
Um,
russellnomer.com is my
Yeah.
website. I'm
Okay.
also out on all of the socials. You can just plug in my name or put me into Google. It's pretty easy to find me. I'm on YouTube as well under the channel Russell Nomer Topic. That'll have all of my music. Anybody out there wants to
Beautiful.
explore my songs, they can do that. But I'm on Apple Music, Spotify, SoundCloud,
Awesome.
Amazon Music. Basically, if there's a streaming service out there, I'm probably on it. And you can also
Awesome.
find me through United Masters and DistroKid as well. Those are the channels that I use for distribution of the music that I put out there. And my books are on Amazon as well.
Awesome.
Checking those out.
So thank you so much for joining us today, Russell. And everyone, feel free to check him out if you're interested in writing a song. I definitely highly recommend Russell. So thank you again, and I hope you enjoyed today's show. Russell, thank you for joining us.
I did, Gigi. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the time. I really enjoyed this. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you for joining me on Sparking Change with Gigi. I hope that our episode today has ignited a spark within you to create positive change in your own life and in the world around you. To learn more about how you can become a guest or supporter, head over to sparkingchange.now.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing, sharing, and leaving a review. Your feedback is incredibly valuable to me, and it helps me to continue producing content that sparks change in each of us and the world. You can find us on various platforms, including Google Play Store, Apple App Store, YouTube, Facebook, Roku, Android TV, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. Thank you again for watching, and I look forward to having you join me again next week on Sparking Change with Gigi.